The government may have shut down, but fresh outlook never does. Welcome to this week's edition. I'm Mia Toski. Well, it's over, folks. The crisis of a government shutdown and a possible national default. But this one wasn't easy, and we'll be talking about it for quite some time. The world was watching, from economists to politicos, and even Hollywood, where one giant in the movie industry made some very controversial statements. And of course, at the core of this shutdown is Obamacare. But there are so many glitches in the system that many are asking, how could this happen? And finally, we'll have the lightning round, where we will talk about Sandy recovery efforts and other hot topics. Of course, we are coming up on the one-year anniversary of Superstorm Sandy. The $63 billion storm has changed the lives of millions who live near the water. But first, the shutdown. Credit for shaping the package is being given to a group of women led by Senator Susan Collins of Maine. Collins is a moderate Republican who led a bipartisan group of 14 senators to develop a compromise to end the 16-day partial federal shutdown and temporarily raise the debt ceiling. Let's take a look.
Motion is adopted.
And with that, the U.S. House of Representatives passed the Senate deal to reopen the federal government and avoid fiscal default. President Barack Obama signed the legislation at the White House just after midnight, and he spoke about it the morning after.
Probably nothing has done more damage to America's credibility in the world, our standing with other countries, than the spectacle that we've seen these past several weeks. The American people are completely fed up with Washington.
After 16 days of partial government shutdown from polarizing parties over Obamacare, the legislation Obama signed on the 11th hour was just that, a Band-Aid for the government to open until next year. People on the streets of New York City and Washington were breathing a sigh of relief.
Well, I'm so glad it happened, and I'm so glad that the Republican leadership decided to cave right before we went into a serious default in our loans.
This is a terrible deal.
Down with kings in the White House
and tyrants.
I blame the Tea Party.
It's a shutdown no more, as the government opens now until January 15th, and the debt limit has been extended until February 7th. The political standoff drew criticism from some celebrities as well. In an interview, Robert Redford spoke bluntly about the shutdown crisis in D.C.
There's a body of congressional people that want to paralyze the system. I think what sits underneath it, unfortunately, is there's probably some racism involved, which is really awful.
Now that the government is open, it just might be back to normal. Or maybe it is just a temporary solution. One thing the majority of people agree on is that they are not happy with how Washington handles its business.
So the question, what have we learned about the calamity in our capital? To talk more, we are joined by former White House aide Didi Benke, who spent plenty of time in Washington. We also have with us media analyst Jackie Guzda and attorney John Patty from Monmouth County, New Jersey. We welcome everyone. Well, here we are talking about the government shutdown again, everybody, even though we're back up and running, supposedly. Let's talk about some of the things that we learned from this shutdown. And we're going to start off, Didi will ask you to start things off and tell us how you're feeling this week with this reopening of the federal government and what we learned.
Well, I don't think it's good news. I think that here we are again. We raised the debt ceiling, so we're going to go into debt yet again. And we're already there. We're trillions of dollars of debt. And I think that now, as far as like coming together, I don't think it was a good thing. I think that, what John Boehner did when he caved, I don't think it was good for our country. Here we are again with Obamacare. And we'll see. But the Democrats should be careful what they wish for. So now that we're moving forward and we see what a disaster it is, it's not going to be good for the midterm election. So be it.
Okay, Jackie? Take it away.
No, I think this is a fabulous thing that finally, and a woman did this, brought those parties together. They opened the government. We saw during that shutdown how important the government is. It's not something that we can just put aside and say, oh, those fat cats in Washington, let's not pay them. And we're paying our debts, the debts we already incurred. It's not like we were allowed, or we are allowed, to incur even more debts because of the raising of the debt ceiling. This was something that had to come together. And internationally, we already put a stain on our reputation by all this infighting. I think we had to come to this point to save face.
And John, let's ask you, was this just a Band-Aid, or just how are you feeling on this?
They're just kicking the can down the road. As a businessman, I noticed no difference with the government open or closed.
Exactly.
It made for great TV, but the first day they opened or the second day, they spent $328 billion. Again, this is bad. I wish they would have just stayed closed.
Yep.
They didn't fix anything. We're going to be back in the same mini-series in a few months. So what did we really accomplish?
Yeah, there's no doubt we're going to see a part 2 of this.
And not only that, there was a lot of pork in that bill, by the way. Billions of dollars just added in. I'm like, are you kidding me? Did you know that? I mean, part of the bill was, there was like aqueducts and there was a project for Senator McConnell. It was just a bad deal all the way around.
Well, let's talk about some of the winners and losers on this. Of course, a new CNN poll says 63% are mostly angry with the Republicans, but very close behind them, Democrats didn't fare well either, 58%, and of course 58% for the president. So those polls are pretty close to what we saw last week, but it really, there's not too many winners or losers. Dee Dee, we'll start with the Republican Party. How can they change their perception and go back on that winners list with the American public?
Well, again, I think that as Obamacare continues to be the disaster, nobody can get on with the glitches. It's not working. It's not the Affordable Care Act. Even in Indiana, I mean, we were doing a poll where it's 70% higher, and I think that's what's going to be across the board. So as people get into Obamacare and try to make it work, they're going to be very angry. They're not going to be happy. They're going to have to pay more money. So then that's when the Republican stock will go way up.
Okay, Jackie, now the Democratic Party also is not faring very well at 58%. How do they increase their poll numbers and make themselves look a little bit better to the American people?
Well, look, Congress's approval rating by an NBC poll is 5%. It doesn't get much lower than that.
Both sides, though.
No one has any confidence at all in Congress right now. I think what's going to happen is that Obamacare now is the law of the land. We have until January. It's going to be instituted. Yes, there have been glitches. They're going to fix those glitches. They're not going to let this law go down the tubes after all the fighting because of technical difficulties. That will be fixed. People who weren't able to get affordable health care will now get affordable health care. It will be a fabulous thing, and we'll see what happens with that extreme right party.
John, you had a little pained look on your face for a minute there. But
it pains me to hear this. I want to hold Jackie's hand and I want to sing Kumbaya. It's not going to happen. They've spent billions on a website. But how much does a website cost? What do people come and say, I'll do it for $1,000, a couple thousand? Billions to create a website that doesn't work. Hello, who's the customer? Government. We're the big losers, all of us here, for letting these people do something so horrible as to take control of a major portion, major segment of our economy.
And I will say that I want to talk about the glitches that you're speaking about. As a reporter, I did go log on and I did try to get some, to see how the system worked and everything. And it took me about 4 hours and I got nowhere. So,
wow, that's dedication.
And I'm going to start documenting it this week.
You and a lot of other people.
Absolutely.
And it will continue.
Well,
it's not
you know
better.
what? Let's see what happens through the next couple of months because Obamacare, the people who didn't have any health insurance now will be covered. And this whole big thing that you're making out of the technical difficulties will go away.
But I do have to say that in terms of the American people being the losers, I do think that we are the losers in so much of this. But I do also want to say that in terms of, Dee Dee, this is going to be for you. The Republican Party, of course, the party of President Lincoln, is now looking, as many have said, like a house divided. What do they do now?
Well, obviously there is some division in the party, and we're trying to find kind of, where we want to go here. I'm more on the conservative side. I like what Ted Cruz did. I thought it was good. We need to stand for something. This happens in political parties throughout history. It happened when the Whigs went away and the Republicans came in. So I think it's healthy, and I think actually the Obamacare situation, as bad as it's going to get, is going to help the party come together, and we'll win the midterm and then win the presidency. We have to.
But how can they come together? I mean, I've heard them I've heard them insult each other. The old Republicans versus this new extreme right wing that's coming in.
Well, I think it's better to have disagreements and working out than just being the collective or the board.
This is beyond disagreement. They're insulting each other.
That the president says when it's wrong. So let him take the Democrat Party down the tubes.
No.
But do you think that the House, do you think that the Republicans are divided? How do they come back? John?
Well, look, I think we're all focused on the same thing. It's how we get there where there's some division. We all want less government. That, I think, is a Republican principle. And I think some people want it quicker than others. So I think at the end, the party of Lincoln will come together and will be victorious in the midterm elections.
I want them to come together. I really do. I miss
Well,
the Republicans. We need, well, hear me out. We need both sides. But what's happening now is that you've got this extreme right, led by Ted Cruz, who wants somewhat of a theocracy. They're always invoking Jesus Christ.
What are you talking about? No, he doesn't.
Yeah, I heard him the other day.
Absolutely not.
They had this value voters summit as though their values are better than the rest of ours.
You're just making stuff up. He didn't say that.
Jackie, did they really say Jesus Christ?
No. Oh,
That
yeah,
is
how horrible.
Horrible. Oh my God.
No,
But
Jesus Christ, and let me
say
answer.
God?
All right, John, let me answer you.
Yes.
Yeah, Jesus Christ and not Allah, because Allah is on the bad side. They want a Christian.
Oh, no, nobody said that, Jackie. Absolutely not.
Jackie,
This is about
keep on
less
talking.
government, not about
Expose yourself.
It's not about religion. It's about less government.
No, I have
Less
had Paul.
government,
I have
exactly.
heard Paul Ryan advocate Christian religion. I have had heard Ted Cruz.
I'm going to stop you on this one. I'm going to go to some other controversial remarks that were made, and we're going to talk about Robert Redford right now.
Oh, great.
And he really
Oh my God.
came out, and we're getting a couple of groans over here. Everybody take a shot. I mean, he came out and basically said that there's certain people, didn't identify who those people were, but I think we all have an idea.
Because he can't.
But he said there are certain people who are trying to paralyze the system, and he believes that it's racism behind it.
Yeah.
It's a very, very big statement to make on national television, but he did make it. John?
Yeah, I think that's a typical liberal thing. If you can't find exactly what the problem is, if you have no way to point to the exact source, you just make something up. Racism, out of what? But because we want more control in our own pockets, we want less government. And another thing, Mean, I think this is most important. Is that his real red hair? It looked like there was some gray.
Are you jealous, John?
A little bit.
Oh, don't be. He's starting to look freaky. He's starting to look really bad.
Look,
But obviously he was making a comment about President Obama and alluding to
I believe he said some racism, because that's my belief too, is that there is always some racism when it comes to Barack Obama.
About the government shutdown because of racism?
No,
Where did
not
that
the
come
government
from? But that's what
shutdown.
he's talking about.
What Robert Redford is
Objection.
saying, what Robert Redford is saying is that anytime there's any kind of issue with Obama, you've got this undercurrent of racism.
That is
Jackie,
insane. That is so wrong and
Jackie.
unfair.
Can I finish? Or
all right.
you know?
Everybody's going to be able to round up their final thoughts. Jackie, final thoughts.
Look, Obamacare is the law of the land. I'm glad we have some time to get it instituted. Yes, there have been big problems with the technical side of it, but I don't think we're going to be having this conversation come January because people are going to embrace it.
Are we going to see another showdown in January, John?
Absolutely, and a river will run through it.
Yeah, there'll be another shutdown, and by that time Obamacare would have failed and had all these problems, so it'll be good for the Republicans.
Amen. Allah. Whatever.
Okay. All right. Well, folks, we're going to continue our discussions on the government shutdown in just a minute. And when we come back, we'll continue on that very subject, and we're going to be talking about the financial crisis that it has also caused within our country. We'll be right back, everyone.